I was doing double jobs. I was doing almost 16, 17 hours per day. And you can see those dark circles around my eyes.
Overworked, underpaid, and barely rested. She's far from alone. 100 years after Canada introduced a minimum wage, it's mostly women still stuck at the bottom of the income ladder. And while some call recent minimum wage hikes a good thing, others call them job killers. So is there a way forward? Jacqueline Hansen spoke to women from different walks of life about how hard it is getting by.
So we still need to do more.
New to Canada, these women count on each other to try to figure out how to make life here work on minimum wage.
One person income is so tough to run the family.
Even with the 21% minimum wage increase in Ontario, Saida Yasmin still has to work 3 jobs to support her family.
I have to pay rent because I cannot compromise these things. I am eating or not, doesn't matter. Nobody can see me I eat or not, but I have to pay rent first.
Bare basics she never expected to struggle to pay for. Their lives are hard, and they're not alone. More than 600,000 women in Canada make minimum wage. That's 60% of minimum wage workers. What that basic wage is supposed to provide them with is unclear.
What is the purpose of it? The really vexatious part about minimum wage is we don't know what it's supposed to be for. There are as many theories as people as you're going to talk to, but there's nothing written down that says the minimum wage should be, for example, the anchor concept for how does the least paid worker by law relate to the average or the median. It turns out that $15 is pretty much between 55 and 60% of the average wage in Ontario, and that's one way of handling it.
A century ago, minimum wage was introduced for a reason: to protect women. Working women were widely exploited as cheap labor, expected to put in long hours, doing needlework, working with textiles, or in other factories.
Then people began to realize there's a level of wage earners that are men that are also very badly paid, and so then the minimum wage became for men and women.
Was the point of it ever that the worker was to have a living wage at the beginning?
No, I would say not. I think it was really protecting from abuse.
Not a wage someone could live on then, and many say it's not a living wage now.
It's a lot more difficult than people realize.
21-year-old Emily Herlock works in a bakery in Toronto.
Especially living in Toronto, everything is a lot more expensive than anywhere else, realistically. And there's so many things that you could possibly be doing, but you don't have the money or the time because you're constantly working.
For her, the wage hike won't change much.
So I only make 50 cents more now, which doesn't really do all that much.
She thinks trying to get a new job could actually be more difficult because of the increase.
You're not going to want to pay to train someone for a job if you get it now. You're going to want to pay someone with the experience over someone that needs the training for it, which is going to make it a lot harder for people my age to find jobs.
Herlock is giving up on Toronto and moving to Nova Scotia, where the minimum wage is lower, but so is the cost of living.
And that's my house back home, and that was my own house. We sold it.
You sold it to move here?
Yeah, to move there. So my daughter
Melka
and my
Paracha and her family moved from Pakistan to Toronto.
First winter was hard for me. Till now, I don't have a warm jacket because it's very expensive, and I can't afford to buy that.
At first, she made about $11 an hour. Paracha says it was next to impossible to provide for her 3 children.
Before, there was like just frustration, so many complaints. Like I lost my pleasant personality, my smiley face by doing that job for a minimum wage. My 2 sons.
Her kids are grown up now, and she was promoted to cafeteria supervisor. The recent hike helps her more than others. She's now paid $14.90 an hour.
I'm living life. I'm living my life right now. Don't you see a smile on my face?
But for Yasmin, providing for her 4-person family on her own is still a struggle.
We are not machine, we are human. I never survived this life back home, but here I have to. There's no way to go back or do anything.
What do you want to see? What do you need?
Living the Canadian standard life, how they live, we want this way.
But as costs keep rising for many minimum wage earners, that standard will likely remain out of reach. Jacqueline Hansen, CBC News, Toronto.
So what does living on minimum wage look like across the country? What are we really talking about in terms of an annual salary? If you look at here, let me show you Ontario, $120,000 per year. That's what 40 hours per week gets you at the end of the year in Ontario. Take a look at Alberta. Albertans will earn $31,200 after their final minimum wage increase, and that happens on October 1st. But the figure is considerably lower in Quebec. That province's annual minimum wage salary will be $24,960 effective May 1st.